Welcome to the Fantasy Beer League, where you get half-decent advice from half-decent guys. I'm your host, Sean Joyce. With me, as always, is spaghetti squash chef Justin Giel.
That's a new one, yeah.
And our resident fantasy football expert, Matthew Senni. How's life, guys?
Life's good.
Everything's great,
LG,
man.
life's good,
Everything's
yeah.
great.
Everything's great. Salt Life, LG, those
Yeah.
dad shirts.
Yeah.
All right, well, today we're going to be discussing the NFC and AFC North, which will conclude our series of pre-draft episodes. If you haven't already, please check out our previews for the other divisions on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Pandora. Our in-season episodes will follow a slightly different format, so you'll definitely want to subscribe to see some of the dumb shit we have planned out, and a little bit more on that later. But first, Justin and I each owe Senni an ice, so let's get that out of the way.
Good memory.
And while we're drinking Vincent Senni, if you guys want, you can start our coverage on the Packers.
Dude, I don't know anything about the Packers other than that Aaron Rodgers is on the team.
I know that Aaron Rodgers is on the team, and I know that they have Green and knows about it.
We need to get the expert Sean Peoples in here. Knows everything there is to know about the Packers.
He sure does. He'd probably tell you they're all like number one overall
Yeah, he
picks.
would.
All right.
That was perfectly in unison.
Yeah, that was good.
My eyes are watering.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when you think of the Packers, obviously the first name you think of is Aaron Rodgers, arguably the most talented quarterback of our generation and an absolute machine of efficiency. But Justin, what is his fantasy value this season?
I got him on a little bit of a decline. He just turned 36. I think his athleticism is starting to go downhill. Apart from Devontae Adams, he doesn't have very many receiving targets. And then in the red zone, last year they started pushing the run more. So I think with Aaron Jones in the red zone, I really don't see him or Rodgers getting much production in the red zone.
Yeah, I agree. I have Rodgers ranked as QB 15 this season, so I don't have him as a starter in most leagues.
Yep.
The Packers won 13 games last season, like you said, running the ball, playing solid defense, control the clock.
Yep. LaFleur.
Yeah, and they made it to the NFC Championship by using that method. So they don't need Rodgers to be the superhero that they needed years prior. He doesn't run much anymore. He used to get at least 200 yards, 300 yards rushing, which helps, but it's not much of that anymore. And like you said, all they really have is Devontae Adams. So to me, he's not a top 10 fantasy quarterback anymore, but he's still viable in two quarterback leagues.
Yeah.
And he boosts the value of his teammates, I'd still say.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones is another guy that I think is going down a bit. Last season, he scored 19 touchdowns, which is not sustainable by any measure. Jamal Williams still had 146 touches, even in that breakout season. Mm-hmm. So it's still more of a committee than people realize. And the Packers used a second-round draft pick on A.J. Dillon, who had over 4,000 rushing yards in his 3 seasons at Boston College. And he's used to being that workhorse back. So I definitely think all 3 of these guys have some value in this backfield. I think all 3 of them are going to be used. So that makes me a bit more cautious about drafting Aaron Jones. I rank him as running back 14, so I still think he's a weekly starter. Mm-hmm. But because of the committee split, I just don't see him putting up those RB1 numbers.
I don't think he's going to be an RB1.
Yeah, last season he was running back 2, I believe, and it's just, he scored 4 touchdowns twice in 2 different games. So 8 of his 19 came in 2 games. It's just not sustainable to score that much, and I see him taking a drastic drop off this season. Devontae Adams had 83 catches and almost 1,000 yards in only 12 games played last season, at least 4 receptions in each game that he played, and racked up a massive 44 over the last 5 games, including the playoffs. So he's Rodgers' favorite target, and the only one I believe he fully trusts. He's still an elite option even after a down year last season. I rank him as wide receiver 4. Are there any other receiving options you like on this team?
Not really. Maybe a late round pick on Valdez Scantling, but apart from that, I really don't see any upside to many of the receivers on this team.
Yeah, the only receiver I would keep on my late radar is actually Allen Lazard, not Scantling. Rodgers likes him a lot. He pushed for him to get playing time last season, but the volume just isn't there for him to sustain fantasy numbers. And I know there's been a lot of hype about Jace Steinberger, tight end. Yeah, but Rodgers has never used his tight ends, so I don't think there's any reason for that to change.
Right.
Even when he had good ones like Jared Cook, Jimmy Graham, they were not the top-end receivers that they would be on another team. Rodgers just doesn't utilize that position. Well, that'll be it. I think that's all I have on the Packers. Anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't have anything else on them.
All right. Well, then let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings. Last season, Skull.
Skull.
All right, last season the Vikings ran the ball at the 4th highest clip in the league, and Stephon Diggs just departed to Buffalo, leaving Adam Thielen as the true number 1 receiver on this team. And with one less mouth to feed, Kirk Cousins can avoid more unwarranted criticism. I just want to take a second to shout out Kirk Cousins. He gets hated on all the time. He's really not bad at all.
No.
He's a good quarterback. He does what he's asked to do.
Great guy, too.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I loved hating him when he was on the Washington team, but it's
It's so easy to hate him.
but now
Back
he's
in
on the
day when they were
Vikings.
the Redskins.
Yeah. Now that he's on the Vikings, I actually like Kirk Cousins a lot, and he's a lot better than he gets credit for.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Justin, how do you feel about Adam Thielen's value now that Diggs is gone?
I like him. He was getting numbers with Diggs there, so they had 2 really good options. And then with Thielen being the number 1 receiver now, I see no reason not to take him if he's available. He's not going to be a top 5 wide receiver taken off the board, but I would have no problem having him on my team.
I rank him as a wide receiver 9, and the argument against him is that he'll draw tougher coverages with Diggs gone. But like you said, when Diggs was on the field, he produced, and even when Diggs was off the field, he was still a solid receiver, still put up huge numbers. The Vikings are going to find ways to get him the ball. Even when Diggs was on the field, Thielen ran or off the field, sorry. Even when Diggs was off the field, Thielen ran over 40% of his routes from the slot. And coverages tend to not go to the slot. So if your top corner plays on the outside, he's going to stay on the outside. There are very few true number 1 corners who go to the slot to shadow a receiver.
Right.
Last season was derailed by injury for Thielen, and he did recently turn 30, which is a dreaded number in fantasy football. You don't ever want to draft a receiver that's getting that old.
Right.
It's a much riskier play.
Yeah.
But I still like him. I have him as wide receiver 9, and I like Justin Jefferson as a late-round flyer. He has the clearest immediate path to get playing time as a rookie, I believe. And he was awesome at LSU. At the running back position, they have Dalvin Cook, who I rank as running back 4. He's yet to play a full season, but he's one of the most explosive players in the league when he's healthy. And if you end up drafting him, just make sure you grab his backup, Alexander Madison. Madison has a similar build and playing style to Cook, so he fits in perfectly in the event that Cook gets injured. And then you also want to monitor Cook's contract situation. There was rumors that he was going to hold out. That doesn't appear to be the case. He's at camp. He's playing. But the contract talks have stalled.
Yeah.
So should something develop in that realm of wronggoing, then Madison would be obviously a top 10 running back for me. And Cook's value would drop significantly.
Yeah.
But it's just something to keep an eye on. Right now, it looks like all things are good. He's going to play.
It's similar to last year with Melvin Gordon and getting Austin Eckler.
Yeah,
afterwards.
exactly. But I don't think that Dalvin Cook is going to miss any time.
No, I don't think he is.
Unless he were to get injured. I don't think anything with the contract is going to derail his season. Speaking of Minnesota, this beer, Sophistry from Lupulin. It's a nice hazy IPA brewed with lemon peel. So it's got a nice little smoothness on the end of the hops because of that lemon zest. So it's a little zesty, a little grassy. Solid beer. I really enjoy this. All right. Senny, can you name any players on the Chicago Bears?
Dude, it's hilarious. First person that comes to mind is Jay Cutler, but there's no way he still plays football.
No, he's not in the league.
You don't even have a wife anymore.
I was going to say, this is the only person I can think of. Nah, dude. That's funny. I can't tell you if I've watched a Bears game in years.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had one season that was good 2 years ago, but other than that, they've been pretty dog shit.
No,
so
there's probably
can't
going
blame
to end up being somebody who, I know is in the league, but I can't think of anybody right now.
Oh, well, right now they have an absolute monster of a defense that's wasted on by their dismal offense. Their starting QB will be either Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles, probably Nick Foles.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be
I
excited
couldn't have
about.
told you Nick Foles was on that team.
Yeah, they traded for him.
That's great.
So to me, that's the writings on the wall. Nick Foles is going to be their starter. He hasn't been
At
good
some point this year.
Yeah, he hasn't been good on any team other than Philadelphia. So I wouldn't think of him as a fantasy relevant quarterback. But I do think he's better than Trubisky, and I do think that's beneficial to Allen Robinson.
Yep.
I rank him as wide receiver 11. He had 98 catches and over 1,100 yards last year with shitty QB play. He has the rare ability to make plays regardless of who's throwing the ball. You see that in DeAndre Hopkins too. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is; he makes plays.
You throw the ball his way, he's getting it.
Yeah,
He's coming down
I
with
mean,
it.
this poor guy played with Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, Like he's had bad luck, but he's still a solid wide receiver. I think he'd be top 5 if he had a consistently good
I think
quarterback.
so. Yeah, you could push for it.
So yeah, wide receiver 11 for me. I think you can trust him every week, regardless of who plays quarterback
Yep.
for the Bears. How do you feel about the running backs on this team, Justin?
I mean, they got a top back in the league. They got Tariq Cohen.
Oh, Tariq Cohen, yeah.
Yeah.
Our friend loves Tariq Cohen.
Yeah. Ian Bennett. I'm not really big on their backfield.
Yeah.
Tariq Cohen, he offers, I think, from like a flex option because he's going to get the catches and everything. But
Yeah, they use him more as a receiver, I think. Last year I saw a lot of plays that they lined him up as a slot receiver.
Yeah.
So if they keep doing that, I mean, I'm pretty sure he had over 70 catches the last 2 seasons, which is solid PPR flex from a running back.
Yeah.
In deep leagues. The running back you'd want is David Montgomery. I rank him as running back 26. He was brutal last season after a lot of pre-draft hype.
yeah.
But now that that's sort of waned down, you can get him at a respectable ADP. And he's a workhorse back. I mean, he only averaged 4 yards per touch last season, which is not good. But he finished with 267 total touches. So the volume is there.
Yeah.
They're committed to getting him the ball. Tariq Cohen isn't going to get the majority of carries. He's not built that way. Like I said, he's primarily a receiver
He's
for
built
this
like
team.
a Brussels sprout. Like
Yeah.
he's not gonna-
Exactly. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. He's not a downfield back.
Yeah. I like Montgomery as a post-hype sleeper. The volume is just too large for me
Yeah.
to ignore it. And if he becomes slightly more efficient, scores some touchdowns, he offers more upside than downside. Not interested in drafting any of the 700 tight ends that they have on their roster, but I'm sure someone will still reach for Jimmy Graham. Do you know? And you have any idea?
Jimmy
who's there?
Graham, absolutely, the name comes to mind.
Yeah, he just signed with the Bears.
Is he
this
not good
offseason.
anymore?
It's not that he's bad, but he's not what he used to be.
Okay.
He used to be like one of the top.
Yeah, he was
two
one of the
tight
best
ends.
in the league.
Well,
Yeah.
at the time, he wanted to be paid like top wide receiver money because
Yeah.
that's what the Saints used him for. Was
Yep.
he was their wide receiver 1 at the
Yeah,
time.
and then they ended up trading him to the Seahawks, and then he went to the Packers. Kind of
So he's just getting passed around at the
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm not interested in him, but somebody will probably reach for him, and just don't be the guy that reaches for him. You
Right.
wouldn't take him either, Justin?
No, and that's what I said. I think he's been passed around too frequently in the past couple years. That's got to say something.
Yeah.
And the production is just not what it was.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, tell me about your beer, as I understand that's from the Chicago area.
It is. I am drinking Benthic from Half Acre Brewing. This is their 2019. It's a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout with toasted coconut and coffee. We'll get a picture of the beer for the shot. It looks like motor oil, and it is fucking delicious.
Yeah.
It's a heavy hitter though. It's 14%. Real smooth. You get the coffee on the nose. You get coconut towards the end. I'm a big fan of this.
Good stuff.
I probably couldn't drink more than one of these cans, and
You gotta drink a 6-pack.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just sold this by the can.
I'm
from the
sure they
brewery.
do. It would put you on your ass if you drank like
Yeah.
Yeah, I
4 of
can't
them.
imagine.
No.
But yeah, really good. If you can find it, I actually got this on one of the pages that I'm on.
Tradesies.
I think it was. I got it for $7.
Oh,
$7 for a 14% beer.
Wow.
nice. Yeah.
Not bad at all.
No,
So,
that's a great deal.
Yeah, I'll take that.
All right. Well, let's move along here to talk about the Detroit Lions. Lions are looking to bounce back after a 3-win season last year, and they have a solid core of young skill players that's led by their veteran quarterback. So you know who that is, right?
Favorite person, Matt Stafford.
Yeah. He knows that all the quarterbacks named
Anyone
Matthew.
whose name is Matt.
I love Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked him.
Yeah. I just want to take a second. I'll give him some respect. I feel like a lot of people think he's a shitty quarterback, but he's good.
Yeah.
Last season was the only time he's missed a start in the whole decade. He's an accurate passer with talented pass catchers. I think he's a high-end QB2 in 2 quarterback leagues. So put him around 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, over 4,000 yards pretty much every year. So he puts up better numbers than you realize. The Lions play from behind a lot. So speaking of playing from behind, I think that helps this next player tremendously. Kenny Golladay, I rank as wide receiver 8. Over 1,000 receiving yards in each of the last 2 seasons and 11 touchdown catches last year. He's got a big body, 6'4". He kind of reminds me of Calvin Johnson.
Yeah. His heir apparent.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
and they use him in that Megatron role. Matt Stafford loves to throw those 50-50 balls. So Kenny Golladay, I'm really high on this year. Marvin Jones Jr., I'm lower on. I rank him as wide receiver 42. I think he's only worth rostering in deep leagues. Scored 9 touchdowns last season, but 4 of them came in 1 game.
Yeah.
So he's got 5 touchdowns in his other 13 games.
I think I picked him up for that one game that he scored 4 touchdowns. I was
good
like,
for you.
Fucking
Nice.
sweet. Started him the next game, didn't do shit. I was
Yeah.
like, "Alright."
Well, yeah, I have that here. He's 2 boom bust for me.
Yeah.
So that game, he had 10 catches, 93 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The week before, he had 2 catches for 17 yards. And the week after, he had 4 catches for 22 yards.
Yeah.
So he'll give you some of those monster games, but he has a very low floor. In fantasy football, I like to have the guys with the highest floor. Maybe
Yeah.
not necessarily the highest ceiling,
Yeah.
but the highest floor. I want a guy that's going to give me steady production that I can plug in. And then in the late rounds, I reach for those guys that can give me, 10 catches and 4 touchdowns in a week.
Yeah.
So Marvin Jones, a late flyer for me, but even still, I'm not that big on his output this season. I really like TJ Hawkinson, their tight end.
Yeah.
I rank him as tight end 11. I think he's a valuable pick given his current low ADP.
Yeah.
I have a feeling like deep in my plums that he's the next Gronk. He's got a similar build, and I just think there's going to be a big jump in production for him this season, and he might emerge as the second best receiver on the team behind Kenny Golladay.
Could be like a George Kittle where he just comes out of nowhere too.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what happened with
Yeah.
Kittle. He was a late round draft pick in
They both
fantasy.
come from Iowa?
I couldn't tell you that.
I think it's Iowa. We'll look that up at the break.
We should implement like a fine system where we say something wrong during the podcast. Like if we misspeak and then it's caught later.
Yeah.
Because I did that last week. I said Arnold Schwarzenegger was the mayor of San Diego. He's
Wasn't
the
he
fucking governor.
Yeah, he's governor
I
of
kind of
California.
just let it go.
Yeah, I sat
I was
there-
just like,
after
was he the mayor before he was the governor?
after we stopped recording, I was like, he's a fucking governor, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I
happens.
thought there was something I didn't know.
Imagine like waking up one day and being like, the Terminator is my governor.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I would
insane.
love it.
Yeah,
I wish,
that's true.
I wish we had a Terminator
He's married
governor.
to a Kennedy, so.
Oh, that's true. All right. Well, I think that covers the receiving options for me. Justin, what do you expect the Lions' backfield to look like this season?
So I really like DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, me too.
Georgia product. He's a local boy too. He's from Philly. I want to see what he can do. Kerryon Johnson has had his ups and downs over the past couple of years, but I think the job is pretty much Swift's to lose. So I'm big on him. I would probably look to take him if he's available in our draft.
Yeah, I rank Swift as running back 27 and Kerryon Johnson as running back 40.
Yeah.
Swift is by far the most talented back on the roster.
Probably their most talented back they've had in a while.
Yeah, I would agree. But I don't think that they're going to commit to him. I don't think it's necessarily his job to lose. I think he just gets, pun intended, the Lions' share of the snaps. I
Yeah.
still think it's a committee.
And I couldn't tell you the last time that the Lions didn't have a committee.
Yeah, and Matt Patricia uses a committee
Yeah.
as a head coach. He follows
Almost
that
exclusively, yeah.
he follows that Bill Belichick model
Yeah.
of use too many running backs for fantasy owners to use your running backs.
Yeah.
And don't tell anybody shit. Don't talk to the media at all. So, like you said, Kerryon Johnson didn't do too much with his opportunity so
Yeah.
far in his career. Swift's the guy I want, and if he were to get the job to himself, like if they were to shy away from the committee approach, he could be a fantasy rock star. He's
Yeah.
built different, and he's just a great running back, great product out of Georgia, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's going to be a committee though.
Yeah.
So for me, he's a flex play with upside.
Yep.
All right. Next week is finally draft week. And as a show, we're doing an 8-man league, but with a little bit of a twist. We're planning on releasing an episode next week to go more in depth with our league mates and our rules. But the main thing you need to know is that someone will be punished each and every week. Punishments are an integral part of fantasy football. You have to let your friends know that you suck, and you do it in different ways. You have to embarrass your friends. We'll be embarrassing each other every single week. And if you want to catch all the action, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fantasy Beer League. And if you would like to submit a punishment, you can leave a comment in the video section below or DM us on Instagram or Twitter via @FantasyBeerLG.
How many people are you gonna say like, oh, nair your balls or something like that?
I'm not putting anything near my testicles.
Nah,
so.
nothing down there. You're gonna have the black bar on YouTube and
Yeah,
everything.
no ball play. on
Yeah.
this. Moving right along to last season's best fantasy team, let's take a look at the Ravens. I know you're both Steelers fans, so I know you have a deep-seated hatred for this team, but try to put that bias aside. Justin,
Yeah.
how do you think Lamar Jackson comes back after last season's ridiculous numbers?
I don't think he's gonna have the same numbers, but I do think he's gonna have a good year. He's a talented quarterback. He's talented on his feet. He can throw the. He showed that he could throw the ball. I think he's gonna have comparable numbers, but not as good. I think Mahomes is gonna have a better year, but I think he's gonna be number 2.
I have Jackson as my QB1, slightly above Mahomes. I think the
Okay.
two of them are in a tier together.
It's because of the rushing.
Yeah, the rushing is
Yeah.
just so valuable in fantasy football.
He's a quarterback and a running back in the same position.
And the 6 points for that you get as opposed to 4 points for running the
Rushing,
ball,
yeah.
rushing touchdowns as opposed to passing
Okay.
touchdowns. So I give him about a round 2 or 3 draft grade.
Yeah.
I wouldn't reach for him as early as the first, but in the second round, if you can get a top end running back and Lamar Jackson, you're off to a really good start. The position is just so deep though that I can't justify taking him over like a top 10 running back because that position is very shallow. There's a serious drop off even from like 5 to 6 in my opinion.
Especially with how
back.
many teams are going by a committee now. Like you don't have
Right,
as many
exactly.
backs that are just like factor backs anymore.
Right. So quarterback is crazy deep. But still, I mean, I still think he's awesome, and I'd be happy to have him. But I just think people are going to be too eager to take him, and that would cause them to miss out on a top-tier running back. And I'd rather have a top-end running back than Lamar Jackson. Another Raven who I think is unlikely to be as dominant is Mark Ingram, too.
Yeah, I agree. The sequel.
Yeah, Mark Ingram, too. Not Junior, too.
Too.
I rank him as running back 28. Last season, he had 5 receiving touchdowns after only having 5 his entire career up until that point. So I don't think that that's going to be a repeatable statistic.
Yeah.
The Ravens drafted J.K. Dobbins in the second round, and reports coming out of camp suggest that he's impressing the coaching staff and he might be the guy. Ingram turns 31 this season, and the Ravens are looking to build on their impressive young roster. I still think he has something left in the tank, and he's going to start the season as the clear-cut number 1 guy. So for me, he's a flex play. But I like the idea of drafting J.K. Dobbins late and hoping that he emerges as the starter for this team.
Okay.
If he were to become the number 1 running back on the Ravens, I think that he would be a fantasy superstar. The talent is there, the production is there, and they're just so good at running the ball. So for me, Mark Ingram is a flex play with some upside, and J.K. Dobbins is a flyer who could emerge as a top 20 running back. And then the talent's just too good on that guy.
Yeah.
So if I can get him late, I will definitely take him late. Their biggest receiving option is not a wide receiver.
No, it's their tight end.
Their tight end, Mark Andrews. I rank him as tight end 3.
Yep.
The Ravens throw to their tight end more than any other team in the NFL.
I feel like they've always been that way too. Because was it Dustin Pitta?
Yeah, Pitta was there.
Yeah, they're doing a lot.
Flacco always threw the ball to him.
They had another guy too. Can't remember his name.
The guy after Pitta, right?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Oh well. Anyway, they have Mark Andrews now. So it was an overcrowded receiving core at tight end. They just let Hayden Hurst go to the Falcons, freeing up 39 targets for Mark Andrews. I expect them to keep throwing to Andrews, and I think they're going to have to throw more now that defenses have a full year of tape on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens' unique running style. I love Mark Andrews this season. I would draft him in around the 4th or 5th round and be very happy with my pick.
Yep.
How do you feel about the wide receivers on this team?
Like you mentioned, they're very good at running the ball, and they have a stud tight end. So I'm not super big on their wide receiving core. Hollywood Brown, he can get you 80 yards on one play, but then he could also drop the ball 5 yards down the field. So I think I would kind of shy away from the banger bust receivers. I would be more likely to draft the tight end before I would draft the receivers.
I rank Hollywood Brown as my wide receiver 34. The talent is there, but the opportunity is not. Like you were saying, wide receivers are kind of an afterthought on this team. They're not as prevalent in the passing game as tight ends are. Marquise Brown led the Ravens wide receivers in targets last season with 71, and he was the leading receiving target on the team.
Yeah.
That was the fewest in the NFL by 44 targets.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is insane.
They just don't throw the ball to their wide receivers. So
Jeez.
I think he sees a bit of a bump this season, but still not enough for me to think that he's going to be a top 20 guy. He's boom or bust as a flex option for me. All right, let's move on to your team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year, their offense was very underwhelming with subpar quarterback play. Their defense was awesome, and good coaching kept them in the playoff hunt until the very end. I actually ranked their defense as my number 1 heading into the season,
So do I.
but I
The only
digress.
reason they did anything last year.
Yeah.
So you're both Steelers fans. I want you to tell me how you think Ben's return will impact the skilled players in Pittsburgh.
I think it's going to have a tremendous impact. Like you mentioned, we were very close to getting to the playoffs with an idiot and a guy named Duck as our quarterback. Ben, he's shown over the years, what he can do. He looks good. Have you seen him recently?
Yeah, he looks sexy.
He looks good. Yeah, the beard.
Yeah, the beard is
Yeah,
sexy.
he's got a nice beard. Big Ben, not for nothing. But yeah, I think and him and Juju have kind of always had that connection. Ben is always like throwing to his tight end, so I think bringing in Eric Ebron. I know you're not super big on him,
But we're not there yet.
Well, I'm still getting. I'm gonna preface it. We'll preface it. And in the past, you've mentioned that you're not big on Eric Ebron. I think he's gonna have a good year. Ben's always liked his tight ends, so I think the skill players are gonna benefit from it. And then I think James Conner is gonna have a good year as well. Have you seen his back?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's the size of a fucking fridge.
It's pretty disgusting, actually.
It's really gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are my thoughts.
And Sonny, how about you?
It's very tough for me to have faith, but because I always see that we had our big talent, in the last couple of years going to other teams, so it's hard for me to have faith in some of these newer players. But if we're 500 with a backup quarterback, then when we get Ben back, I've always been very big on Ben. I've always had a lot of faith in Ben when other people, think he's too old, thinks he needs to be done.
It's my quarterback.
I personally think that if we can get to that point with a backup, then with Ben back, I'm hoping that we can get a lot more done this year.
All right. Well, now I'm going to tell you my unbiased thoughts. James Conner, I rank as running back 21 outside of my starting roles. He always seems to be banged up. He either misses time or he leaves games early. I'm not questioning his toughness because he's a cancer survivor, but I can't tell you how many times he's played the first 3 quarters and then left with like a
great
thumb
guy.
injury.
He's very unreliable fantasy-wise.
And Pittsburgh has never used a committee. They've always committed to a workhorse back.
Yeah.
But towards the end of the season, there was a serious split between Connor, Samuels, and Benny Snell Jr.
Yeah.
They're really deep at the position, and they just drafted a talented young rookie in Antonio McFarland. Anthony? Yeah. I have a feeling that multiple running backs are going to see touches, and if Connor continues to have injury problems and inconsistency, he may lose his job. He may not be the clear-cut starter. I'm out on him this season. He can be somebody else's headache. I had him last year, and I can't put myself through it again. I'm too hurt. They didn't have a single running back last season with over 500 yards.
Yeah.
So it hurt my heart.
That year, I was going to say Jesse Owens. Jesse James, when we lost the Patriots. The Outlaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
That year fucking hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt. I thought we were destined for it that year.
Speaking of hurt, this is another player that hurt a lot of fantasy owners last year. Juju Smith-Schuster, I also rank outside of my top 20. I rank him at wide receiver 22. His outlook really depends on how you feel about Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Juju was awesome as a rookie, racking up over 1,400 yards on 111 catches. Last season, he struggled with rotating quarterbacks and no Antonio Brown to draw the tough coverages. I'm not a believer in Ben coming back and saving the day. I sort of view him as the AFC version of Eli. I think he's washed. I saw in the first 2 games last season, I know he got hurt in that second game, but those first 2 games he was brutal. He didn't look like Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Looked very out of sorts. He was overthrowing, underthrowing. I'm hoping that he's better because that would definitely make this team more fantasy viable, but I just don't see it. I think Juju's going to finish somewhere between 111 catches and like the 40 whatever he had last year. I think he's going to be in like a 70-ish reception type player, which is solid as a flex play, but I don't see him being the wide receiver he was back in his rookie season. Deontay Johnson is a guy I like a lot. He's a sleeper for me. Last season, he finished as a top 20 receiver through the final 4 weeks of the season. And if that carries over into this year, he could end up being a solid flex. Roethlisberger has supported 2 fantasy viable receivers in the past. So there's really no reason to think that he won't chuck it.
Yeah.
So if you can get Deontay Johnson late, I like him as a later round pick and hope that he emerges as something else.
You like him more than Washington?
I do. I was in on James Washington last year, and the opportunity was there, and he didn't do anything with it. Yeah. So I think that James Washington might have a couple games where he scores you some long touchdowns, but I don't see him...
Yeah, he's their flyer.
Yeah, I don't see him earning a carved-out role on this team. Last season was his chance to emerge, and Deontay Johnson did. He did not. Eric Ebron is another guy I'm fading. I'm out on him this season. He just isn't as good as he thinks he is. His touchdown production in Indianapolis was not sustainable, and I said that all along. So last year, he dropped from 13 touchdowns in 2018 to 3 touchdowns last season. I think that's more about what you're going to get. I think he's going to finish as tight end 20-ish.
You want to set a line for the touchdowns?
Yeah, we can bet.
Inside bet?
Yeah, we'll bet.
Okay.
How many touchdowns? What do you think?
Let's set it at 6.
6?
5.5.
I was going to say 4.
All right, so 5.5. I'll take the under.
I'm going to go over.
All right. Sandy, you want in on this too?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think?
Sandy's going to push. He's going to get 5.5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You can't push.
You can't push. You can't get a half
score
touchdown.
half a touchdown. There's no push.
Nah, I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna
4.
stick with
All right.
4.
So me and Senny have the under. You have the over. We'll
Should we let the fans decide on the bet?
like how much money?
Not the money, but like
What we have to do?
yeah.
Okay. Or we could ask our producer if
Yeah,
he has
Vince,
anything
what
in
should
I
we
mind.
just
do?
think he's gonna use Juju more.
Yeah.
And can I get that can?
So for our bet, Vince, we have the line for Eric Ebron touchdowns. What should the loser of the bet have to do?
Ooh, I get to pick the punishment for this.
Yeah,
losing?
because I want an answer like right now.
No streaking.
No.
We don't want to have to put in that black bar.
I don't know. I really don't.
All right, we'll take some time to think about it. We'll post something after maybe.
What if we do a Twitter poll?
Twitter poll? Okay,
Ooh,
that's
Twitter
a good
poll
one.
sounds
We'll
good.
put some options. You can vote at Fantasy Beer League. Sorry, at Fantasy Beer LG on Twitter.
Yeah, we each come up with an option. We have the fans vote.
Sounds good. All right, we'll settle that off air. I know that what I said about the Steelers isn't what you guys wanted to hear.
No,
So
that's what I hear from the critics all the
No,
time.
it's
so it
it's
is what it is.
And the comparison to Eli is a realistic comparison.
Yeah.
It really is.
So how about you guys tell me what you're drinking? And,
Sure. I'll go first. So I have Black Cloud's Mexican Chocolate from Dancing Gnome. It's a brewery in Pittsburgh. This beer is fantastic.
it is.
It tastes so good. You get a little bit of cinnamon. What did I compare it to earlier?
Coffee cake,
No, not coffee cake.
Pop-Tart.
Yeah, like a drunken brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tart. Really good. And stemming from this, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Andrew Freitas. He has this really rare and horrible disorder where he just sets his mind to brewing beers, and for 2.5 years he's still not yet brewed a beer. So I'm hoping someday soon he will be cured of this sickness and will finally brew his beer.
Prayers up for Freitas.
Yeah.
Senny, what are you drinking?
At A Freitas 8.
So I finally gave in to all the hype, and I bought the Bud Light Seltzer. So I've heard very mixed opinions about this. I've had some people tell me it's great, and I've had some people tell me that it's terrible. So if you don't know, I am not a Bud Light guy. I am very pro Miller. So I tried the strawberry flavor before this, and it was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, strawberry's not good.
I'm drinking the lemon lime now, and I would say that it's pretty good. I still think Bud Light is garbage. So for all you Bud Light fans out there, go fuck yourself.
There goes that sponsor.
Oof, yeah.
But it's it's okay. It's okay, I guess.
All right, a very lukewarm response to the Bud Light Seltzer by Matt Sanny. Let's move on to the Cleveland Browns. Last year, they failed to live up to the preseason hype, and that is reflected in their ADP this season, which I love. I like this team from a fantasy perspective because they have a ton of upside, and a lot of people are fading their draft or their skill players because of how shitty they were last year. I like both of the star receivers on this team. How do you feel about them, Justin?
I do too. I had a very, very difficult time choosing between the two of them. I think from a talent perspective, I would probably take OBJ over. But even with his down year last year, quote unquote down year, he had 74 catches for over 1,000 yards.
It's the first note I have here.
Yeah,
Actually, so
74 catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. While that doesn't sound like a bad year, he's averaging, I think it's like 93 catches for like 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns.
yeah.
So for a down year, it's still a really good year. And I think with Baker getting more time under his belt, that's only going to boost up everything there.
I agree. I just want to sink into it for a second. The first fucking note I have is even in a down year, he
You
had
put the quotes there? I have the quotes as well, yeah.
74 catches over
Yeah.
1,000 yards. Anyway, he may not be the top 5 receiver he was earlier in his career, but he still makes the spectacular seem mundane. And given his wide receiver 2 draft price, he's going in that 11 to 20 range. I love the idea of getting him as my second receiver.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the coaching change in Cleveland is going to improve the way they use Odell. And I think Stefanski will work him to maximize his abilities and get him the ball. Jarvis Landry, I also really like. I rank him at wide receiver 28. He has a higher floor than Odell, and he has over 80 catches in each of his first 6 seasons. So,
He hasn't missed a game in his career.
is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a 6-year career, I think it is. He hasn't missed a game.
Wow. Yeah, so he's going into his 7th season, so impressive. So consistent work, and he's a PPR machine. He catches a lot of balls, racks up a lot of yak. I like him. I think he's a flex-worthy play. I don't think he has those types of games where he just explodes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns like Odell can. But he has a really safe floor, which is good as your flex in PPR. Last season, Nick Chubb was awesome before Kareem Hunt came back from suspension. And after Hunt came back, the two of them were both heavily involved in the offense. When the work was all his, he was RB5 on a points per game basis. From week 10 on, after Hunt came back from his suspension, he was RB23 and Hunt was RB24. I rank Chubb as RB12 this season, and I have Hunt as RB20. Do you like both of these guys too, Justin, or do you think I'm overvaluing Kareem Hunt's role in this offense?
No, I like them. I have a similar kind of look on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Kareem Hunt is probably the best handcuff you can have in the league. Just from a skill perspective, and like if you have Chubb and you have Hunt, I don't think that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hunt will be better in the passing game than Chubb will.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm pretty on par with, and I'm in agreement with your rankings and everything.
I would argue that Madison is a more valuable handcuff to Cook, but Hunt has more standalone value.
With the likelihood of Cook getting hurt.
Yeah. So I would agree. I love both those guys. I'd be happy with either of them on my team. I think they're both RB2s.
Yeah.
And should one of them get hurt, they're an RB1. So
yeah.
I do. You make a good point. Austin Hooper, I rank as tight end 16. I just think there's too many mouths to feed in Cleveland, and I think he's the fourth best option on the team behind OBJ, Landry, and Hunt.
Yeah.
So I don't see him being what he was in Atlanta. I'm not interested in him, but I'm sure other people in your league will be.
Yeah.
So it's really a gut call. It's how you think how he's going to be used, and I just don't see it being a fantasy relevant season for him. Fans of the Browns know nothing but sadness and pain, and perhaps this beer can alleviate some of that sadness. This is a series of tubes. It's by Masthead Brewing, found in Cleveland. This is a cryo-hopped IPA, New England style. Tastes delicious.
Do you know why they freeze the hops?
Tell me why.
It keeps the oils in the leaves, and that way when you add them to the boil, it releases more of the oils out.
Okay. Well, it tastes good, so I'm happy that they're doing that.
Yeah, that beer was good. Is that another Tavor beer?
It is, yes.
I hope
Tavor.
they're watching.
Yeah,
Tavor, sponsor us.
we hope you want us, Tavor. We love you.
Yeah.
We couldn't do this without you.
We couldn't.
Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
All right, Senny, for a chance to ice one of us, can you name a Bengal?
Dude, I'm going to hope that AJ Green is still in the team.
Oh, he is. I forgot.
Because AJ Green is the Bengal that I think of.
He's on the team.
All right, we got to get Vince in here.
All right, Vince. You got to
Should
get
he
over
get in
here.
frame?
Vince will be in
Yeah,
frame.
he's going to get in frame for
I'm
this?
gonna be like in this area.
There you go.
Good.
Same spot as last time.
It's the easiest because I have the widest shot with him. So
Yeah.
it works out.
All right, Vince.
Green apple. This
Yeah.
probably tastes
One of the
like a
better
fucking
ones.
Martini.
I think it's one of the better ones.
It's not bad,
It wasn't
actually.
bad.
Yeah,
Nah, I
it
made
goes
my
down
eyes
nice.
water, but it wasn't that bad.
All right, well, while he's drinking that, how do you feel about AJ Green going into this season,
I
Justin?
fucking hate AJ Green.
Okay.
Well,
I want you to tell us how you really feel about AJ Green.
okay. I fucking hate AJ Green. Because, one, I have drafted him so many times, and I was just
me
like, all right,
too.
I'm like, it's a good pick where I got him, and then he gets fucking hurt. He's only played
Yep.
3 full seasons in his entire career.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
And, like, he's got no availability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you never know what you're going to get from him. You can start him, he'll put up 120 yards, get 2 touchdowns, or then he's going to be out for 6 weeks.
The best ability is availability.
Yes, I have that written down too.
Yeah. AJ Green, I rank as wide receiver 32. Injury and age, huge concern.
Yeah, he just turned 30 or 31.
32, I think. I could be wrong. I don't know. That might be a fine. We have to implement a fine system.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
it's
a
good
fine
idea.
system.
All right, we'll talk about that when we talk about our bets.
Okay.
Anyway, I expect Joe Burrow to look towards him when he's on the field, but he already has a hamstring injury in camp. And it could just be precautionary. That's what they're saying. But the injury concern is just too high for me.
He looks like a chopstick too. He's so small.
Yeah, he's a little dude.
Yeah.
The upside is still there,
Yeah.
but the risk is too rich for my blood. I'd rather have Tyler Boyd. I rank him as wide receiver 30. He had over 1,000 receiving yards each of the last 2 seasons. He's good when A.J. Green is on the field, and he's great when A.J. Green is off the field.
Yeah.
I like both guys as flex plays with upside, but I'm not banking on either being a weekly starter for me. The Bengals are kind of out of sorts. So, and last year, I want to just get this off my chest. I drafted Joe Mixon in the first round and was absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
So this year, I'm trying to forget and have a short memory. I rank him as running back 11. He was brutal start of last season. but he finished the season with over 1,100 rushing yards and 8 total touchdowns.
Yeah, I looked that up and I was like, did he really? And I like checked 3 different sources. And I was like, yeah,
he did. He did.
That's right.
He's still a workhorse in this offense, and there's just no way that he can be as shitty as he was at the start of last year. Just to air out some of my frustrations, there were 4 different games in the first 7 weeks where he had 10 yards or fewer. In week 7, he had 10 carries for 2 yards. I think if you just fell down 10 times, you could get more than 2 goddamn yards.
It's like Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it is like Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
I hate that
He's
motherfucker.
6 foot tall,
too.
you fall forward, you get 2 yards.
Yeah. If you drafted him last season, you probably have reservations about drafting him again. I know I personally do, but I'm trying to look past that.
So I was with Gurley.
I was all in on that motherfucker last season, and he crushed me.
Yeah.
But as fantasy managers, we have to have short memories and always look ahead. So Joe Mixon, I think, is a top-end running back 2 with running back 1 upside. He might have some of those bad games, but he can't be as bad as he was last year. I just can't imagine he's that bad.
I think it's
again.
hard for the Bengals in general to be as bad as they were last year.
They're a factory of sadness.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
like it. I mean,
I'm not going to
Steelers
complain about them doing bad.
there are times where they gave us a run for them. There's times where they won the division.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one
Carson
time.
Palmer years.
Yeah.
Heisman Trophy winner, Carson Palmer.
My boy. I love that guy.
What's he up to now?
I don't know. Maybe he's selling cars.
Maybe he's in real estate. I'm going to say real estate.
Real estate. Could you imagine, like, walking by a house and there's a picture of Carson Palmer on a sign out front of your house?
Alvin Kamara is working at a car dealership now.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's selling cars. He sold the punter from the Saints a car.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. Maybe because he got into NASCAR with the whole Bubba Wallace.
I love that.
Yeah. Because, like, he was backing
the flag,
up.
yeah.
He was backing up Bubba Wallace. Now he's a big NASCAR fan.
Yeah.
Maybe Alvin Kamara is a car guy. Alvin Carmara.
Carmara. You want to get shirts? Alvin Carmara?
Oh, yeah. That's our first tagline on the Fantasy Beer League.
Yeah.
I have for you what Carson Palmer is currently doing with his life.
Oh,
Oh,
let's
okay.
That's awesome.
Please, Vince, tell us.
He's just being a dad. That's it. He says he's demanding role of being a dad.
I'm sure he's made enough money where he doesn't.
Yeah.
Dad life, LG, life is good.
Life's good.
Full circle. That'll do it for our final preseason episode. We'll have a special draft recap episode next Wednesday, and then we'll begin our weekly preview podcasts. As always, you can find those videos on YouTube, and audio-only podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pandora. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at FantasyBeerLG. That's the words Fantasy Beer and the letters LG. I'm Sean Joyce. He's Justin Giel, and here's Matt Senni with his weekly advice.
Don't draft these old Super Bowl winning quarterbacks unless you're feeling sentimental and stupid.
All right. Good luck with your draft, everybody. Crush it. Make fun of your friends. Implement punishments. Make your friends pay for their shitty fantasy football skills. Have a great week.
Cheers.